always agitated by Krishna's mercy. Setan nirjitak kubekarad vishyan priyan, yatopajosham punzano natapedzitendriye. Quote, in spite of achieving the power to control in all directions, and in spite of enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling his senses, he remained their servant. Shrimad Bhagavatam 7:4-19.
We have probably covered this topic a few times already, but given the emerging popularity of these officially sanctioned apps, which are advertised throughout the televised games, it might be time to revisit the issue of gambling. Someone new to Bhakti Yoga, to the presentation of Bhagavad Dharma descending from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, might be puzzled as to the restriction on gambling. This is one of the 4 principal prohibitions, which are part of the anartha nivritti aspect of yoga as a discipline. The contention is that people want to have some fun. There's not much to watch on television. Putting a wager on a sporting event creates interest. You can really dig into the statistics. Joining with your friends, Sunday afternoon is now a good time. The amounts are low enough to not cause a disturbance to the monthly cash flow. I get it that in places where you have large casinos, it is almost like a shadow government gets created. Sort of like a mob or a mafia, they control the elections, the elected officials, and future changes to public policy. You have the classic bookie and his promise to bust kneecaps for the debtors unable to pay. The people who wagered big and lost. There is also the well-known addiction to gambling. I'm not talking about the extreme cases, but if someone just wants to have a little fun, what is the harm? Why would gambling be included in the 4 regulative principles? I guess that's what I'm asking.
The question to ask is the purpose to the regulations in the first place. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada teaches the way of life known as Krishna consciousness. Consciousness involves the mind, though even that is a subtle element of nature, temporarily associated with the individual, who is spirit soul. The goal of every single regulation, rule, and ritual is to move the yogi closer to that consciousness of Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. Quote, there are many kinds of cheaters all over the universe. Of all cheating processes, gambling stands supreme and therefore represents Krishna. As the supreme, Krishna can be more deceitful than any mere man. If Krishna chooses to deceive a person, no one can surpass him in his deceit. His greatness is not simply one-sided, it is all-sided. Per 1036 purport. Bhagavad-gita considers gambling to be the topmost form of cheating, at least the highest embodiment of the cheating spirit. Krishna is equivalent with gambling in this way. If he wants to cheat someone, no one can top him. But when trying to reach transcendence, cheating is unfavorable. It is anartha. The individual is trying to understand the absolute truth after all. It is said that gambling chips away at honesty, but we can see the detriment at an even more basic level. Let us take the example of someone who is interested in an upcoming election. They hear from the candidates, they watch the televised debates, they study the polls. Come election night, they are glued to the returns. They are studying the county-by-county differences. They desperately want this one candidate to emerge victorious. It is like a life-or-death outcome. Late into the night, that preferred candidate is declared the winner. They are going to assume office. The person following the supporter is happy. They are relieved. The outcome went in their favor. Immediately thereafter, however, the focus shifts to other races. The local offices, the legislature. This same person is now clinging on to the hope that this race and that falls the correct way. In a matter of minutes, they have completely forgotten about that previous outcome, which went in their favor. This constant agitation of the mind is known as Agitated. It is coming under the control of the senses. In an honest and sober analysis, Agitendriya is the worst position to find. It is more inhibiting than an ailment afflicting the body. It is worse than actually becoming poor or being scorned by a friend or loved one. This is because Agitendriya is perpetual misery. We have the historical example of Hiranyakashipu, who was the king of the Daitya community. He did not have to worry about gambling, since every outcome could fall in his favor. Through a spoken decree, he could have up changed to down, for instance. There was no one to stop him. Shrimad Bhagavatam says that Hiranyakashipu was Agitendriya. He was not happy. He also could not guarantee having a son who aligned with the Daitya way of living. Prahlad Maharaj was inclined towards Krishna since birth. The child essentially favored the mortal enemy of his father. Hiranyakashipu was so disturbed by this allegiance that he tried every which way to stop it, breaching the boundaries of decency and familial affection. The people teaching Bhakti Yoga hope that we find the Jitendriya platform. That is the underlying purpose, the foundation, if you will, of all the rules and regulations. The more we can avoid agitation, the more we can focus on the lotus of the Supreme Lord, who is always wishing us well. In closing, always wishing us well, the truth Prahlad to tell. But antagonistic was the father, senses his judgment to bother, because from Agitendriya to suffer, no success his paranoia could buffer, such that even violence against son to apply, but failed in every attempt to try.